Daniel Markey, do you also agree that this relationship is now going beyond just containing China to actually being a relationship that works at multiple levels, from clean energy to technology transfer to business dealings? India emerging as the 5th largest economy in the world, set to overtake Japan and Germany by 2028. Does that become the great attraction? Is this America's business is business, or something more significant that we are seeing likely to happen in this visit?
Well, look, I think it wouldn't hurt to put the visit in a bit of context here. For now about 2 decades, it's been about more than just China. In fact, I think from the beginning, going back to the Clinton administration, we would say that it's been about many other things. It's been about business as business. It's been about politics and diplomacy, and it has been about defense relations. So in a way, that's more continuity than change. But I think the thing that has really accelerated this relationship are mutual concerns about China. And that says a lot about China's behavior, not least along India's borders and in the Indian Ocean, as well as elsewhere, which has raised serious concerns here in the United States, which you hear about all the time, and obviously has heightened anxieties in India. And that's where I think the core of the relationship now rests. In a way, the other aspects, though they continue to be important, have not accelerated as rapidly as the core concern about China. That's the subtext of just about everything that's being done. I think there is a shared and important mutual interest there. I might not go so far yet as some of the other panelists in suggesting that that's the foundation for something of a proto-alliance. But I do think, just as the United States has had shared security concerns with many other countries in the world in the past and has worked closely with them, there is a great deal more that the United States can do with India on that basis. While the other aspects of the relationship, they're commercial, people to people, and so on, there's also a lot more that we can build on. We're starting, unfortunately, a couple of decades ago, we were at a relatively low point in the relationship, and there's a lot more that can be done to build upon these things, even if I don't agree that we're on the cusp of a true alliance or even nearly so.
Okay, that's interesting, because I just want to trace now the arc of this relationship. And this is interesting because we have some wonderful archival footage, and I'll bring you in, Meera Shankar, in a moment. India-US ties over the years. 11th October 1949, just for people who think history only begins in 2014, Jawaharlal Nehru met US President Harry Truman. He referred to it as a goodwill tour, met with Senate House members and the Indian diaspora, much smaller then. 17 December 1956, Nehru meets US President Dwight Eisenhower, only world leader at the time to stay at Eisenhower's farm. This was Jawaharlal Nehru. US economic aid to India was doubled after the visit. 6 November 1961, Nehru goes to the United States on a state visit, meets US President John Kennedy, and they held multiple summits. It was a visit where Nehru was greeted rather euphorically, and Kennedy approved increased aid to India. Then we come to Indira Gandhi, 27 March 1966. She meets US President Lyndon Johnson. This is, of course, against the food crisis in India. It results in increased US food and development aid. Eventually, of course, India broke away to have its own green revolution. 9 November 1971 was a significant visit. Indira Gandhi met US President Richard Nixon. That meeting was extremely frosty. The meeting was held just ahead of the India-Pakistan war, and famously, Indira Gandhi apparently didn't look at Nixon during the state dinner. Meet, remember, also was over the humanitarian crisis building in Bangladesh. 30th July 1982, Indira Gandhi met US President Ronald Reagan, signed an agreement on the Tarapur Nuclear Plant Corporation, signed an agreement of French uranium supply for the Tarapur power plant. 12 June 1985, Rajiv Gandhi met US President Ronald Reagan and became significantly the first Indian Prime Minister to address a joint Congress meet. Spoke of the IT revolution that was building up at the time. 31st Jan 1992, Narasimha Rao achieved a major breakthrough at the time. In a post-Cold War era, met US President George Bush, only Indian Prime Minister to meet at the time with George Bush. September 2000, Atal Bihari Vajpayee met US President Bill Clinton. This was a very important visit. addressed the joint US Congress session. It was against the backdrop, of course, of India having gone nuclear and India's seeming nuclear isolation. Instead, the two leaders signed a landmark next steps in strategic partnership. 18 July 2005, very significant. Manmohan Singh meets US President George Bush at the time in the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Initiative. And this is where the defense ties were opened up, which we are now seeing Mr. Modi take to another level, and energy dialogue initiated. 24th November 2009, Manmohan Singh met US President Barack Obama. It led to the Indo-US strategic dialogue. So the point being made is that this is a continuum. Would you agree with that, Meera Shankar, that today, while should we look at this as Mr. Modi's outreach to the US, or is Mr. Modi carrying on a continuum, particularly what we've seen happen in the last 25, 30 years after India liberalized its economy?
Yes, I think there were really two factors which enabled India and the US to reassess and rebuild their relationship, and that was the opening up of the Indian economy in 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. So I think these two factors really enabled the two countries to re-look at their relationship, and since then there's been a concerted effort from both sides to see how we could work on commonalities, build greater substance into the relationship, and move towards a truly strategic partnership. So, you have the nuclear deal, which was absolutely transformative, removing one major issue which had constrained and bedeviled the relationship for many years. It also involved the US changing the international regime of the nuclear suppliers group to allow civil nuclear cooperation with India. So it was a fairly major initiative which was taken. After that, you had the whole liberalization of the defense and high technology export regime, because even after the nuclear deal, India was at the lowest rung. We were on par with Sudan when I was ambassador for purposes of US defense and high technology exports, even at that stage. And then during President Obama's time, we began the process of liberalizing this regulatory regime, eventually leading to India being declared a major defense partner of the US, on par with the US's closest allies, and a strategic trade authorization, placing India in category 1.